My guests today are Ashley France and Taylor Guy. Ashley is a homeschooling mom of 5 who founded Cross Creek Academy as a pre-K through high school Charlotte Mason inspired hybrid homeschool program in rural central Arkansas. It currently serves about 100 learners. Is that right, Ashley and Taylor?
Yeah.
Yeah, about 100 learners, about 45 families. And Taylor is an administrative assistant at Cross Creek Academy, who's also a mom to 3 students who attend the program. I had the great pleasure of meeting Ashley and Taylor in person when I visited Cross Creek Academy and saw this incredible booming program that they've built. And it's so exciting to have them back or have them here on the podcast to be back talking with them today. So Ashley and Taylor, welcome to the LiberatED podcast.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
I'm so glad you're here. It was such a treat to be able to see Cross Creek Academy and really just see this amazing program that you've built and all the families that you're serving. And Ashley, I'd love to get a little bit of your origin story. I know we talked for a long time when I visited and found that we had so much in common in terms of our pathway to homeschooling and unconventional education. I'd love for you to share that with my audience, particularly that you and I kind of both came to homeschooling through attachment parenting and sort of this parenting style that's all about being responsive to children and respecting their needs. And I'd love if we could just maybe start there for you, Ashley, of how did you discover attachment parenting and what did it mean for you as a mom?
Yeah. Well, my mom learned about breastfeeding in LiberatED League in the 80s, and she talked about it all the time and kind of influenced me about all of that because it was kind of experiencing a resurgence at the time. And so I got interested in that when found out I was expecting. And I had also been in school for psychology and social work and learned a lot about attachment theory. And I was really interested in that. And so through some formal study and also just my family of origin, I kind of stumbled into attachment parenting through kind of the natural birth breastfeeding kind of route. And through that, I discovered positive discipline and, the alternatives to kind of the traditional punishment, reward, spanking thing. And really found that that was a great thing for me and my kids. And I also found that their development towards being kind of classroom ready was kind of slower because we weren't really, squelching the behaviors as fast because of kind of the gentleness of the approach. And so I just kind of wanted to hold on to them a little bit longer. And throughout that time, I read a lot of books, one of them being For the Children's Sake by Susan Schaefer Macaulay, kind of a summary of Charlotte Mason's theory, and also the book Hold On to Your Kids by Gordon Neufeld, I think it is.
Yeah.
Sorry if I got that wrong. And I was just very influenced by those 2 books, and that's kind of how it began for me in terms of through the parenting route kind of thing. It just seemed to fit with what I was already doing.
Yeah, and then you were also an instructor, a La Leche League instructor too, Ashley. Was that right, or did that come later?
It was Attachment Parenting International.
Attachment parenting. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. Yeah. So you were a part of Attachment Parenting International and sort of helping other parents discover this wonderful approach to nurturing and relationship building with children. And again, similar to my path of then seeing the extension of that in the school age years to homeschooling or other kinds of alternative education. And so as your kids got older, what was you started homeschooling them. I know you had told me that you found a hybrid homeschool for them that was more of a classical model.
Mhm.
What was that your sort of early exposure to alternative education for your kids, um, you know, before you started your own program?
Yeah. I do want to say, like, the extended long story begins with my mom did have For the Children's Sake on her bookshelf. And I remember, I think the earliest root of me starting this is my mom saying, I was probably in about third or fourth grade, saying, I wish me and my friends could get together and just start our own little school where we would have all these fun things to do, dance lessons and music lessons and school subjects all in one place. And I that memory really stuck with me. And I didn't even realize that it took root in me until later. But I wanted to mention that before I got into the later. So that happened a very long time ago. And then, so when I realized that my kids weren't ready for school, or my oldest child wasn't ready for school, I started looking into homeschooling and hybrid alternatives, and ended up finding we were going to move to another state, and ended up finding a hybrid classical school there. And it did not work out for us. My experience was that the other parents that were drawn to the to that school were not like us in terms of what we've already talked about, and it just wasn't a good fit for my family. And so after about a quarter of that year, we decided to try homeschooling. And so that's kind of what really got me started with homeschooling. I think I was afraid to begin, and that's why we started off with a hybrid school.
Yeah. And then you moved to Arkansas, right?
Yes.
And continued homeschooling and realized that there wasn't sort of, programs here that fit what you wanted. So you started with just sort of informal homeschool co-ops, right? Sort of nature-based, Charlotte Mason inspired homeschool co-ops. I wonder if you can talk a little bit about what that was like in those early years.
Yeah. So we tried some different hybrid school options here too as well, but they just weren't working out for us. So I brought my kids back home again, and we started a once a month nature and book club. So I had learned about living books from Charlotte Mason, and I had been reading her volumes and learning more and more just about the depth of her methods and how much there really was to it. And it really wasn't just fluff. And so we started by picking 3 classic children's books for a year and reading them 3 months at a time. So we would meet and read the first chapter together, and then we would let the kids play for several hours in nature, and then we would meet halfway through the book, and then we would meet to read the very last chapter. So that's how we did it, meeting once a month. But we were experimenting with letting kids play in nature and not telling them how to do it or what to do, or planning like an activity for them, because I think that idea was kind of foreign to us, most of us at the time. Like the fact that the teacher would not be heavily lesson planning, especially in an outdoor setting. So that was really interesting, seeing the kids really take to that. And we started doing that in 2014. And then from there, it grew. Do you want to?
Yeah, just tell us a little bit briefly about how it grew over those next few years, and then before we get to the actual launch of Cross Creek. Yeah.
Okay. So the launch of Cross Creek was of our 501c3 was in 2019. So from 2014 to 2019, we basically went from meeting once a month with a nature and book club to finding out more about what she wanted kids to learn and adding that. So we went from once a month to twice a month to once a week to twice a week. And once we were at twice a week, 2 half days a week is when we ended up kind of getting more structured and everything. But we would add things like Paper Sloyd and Shakespeare and folk dancing, folk songs, hymns, kind of, just those classic Charlotte Mason subjects until we just felt like we were running out of room in our week, and we just continued to fill it up.
Add more things.
Yeah. So
yeah. So maybe we could just pause for a minute. And Ashley, could you tell us about the Charlotte Mason educational philosophy, and particularly, um, it seems like it complements attachment parenting theory quite well. And it seems like maybe that was why you were attracted to it. I wonder if you could just share, for those who might not be as familiar with Charlotte Mason, what the general philosophy is.
I can try. There's 20 principles. The first principle is children are born persons. And I think for me, that was such a breath of fresh air to find a homeschooling philosophy that even acknowledged that. And for me, it was, and Taylor too, she's an attachment mom as well. And so, for us, it was obvious, but I think for a lot of people, that's kind of a new concept. Not, I mean, not really, but it really does blow a lot of people's minds. The idea that children are born already whole and complete. And what Charlotte Mason says is they are whole and complete in intelligence and emotions. And the only thing that they lack is experience. And so what our job is to provide them with experience, and a wide variety of experience, because we never know what they're going to take to. We don't know what they're meant for and what they're going to really love to do and learn. And that's why she, prescribed that wide feast of subjects and ideas. But that's the first principle. But she goes on and talks about how to treat children and how to respect them, and how they are, what am I trying to think of?
They're not just a product that we're trying to mold or shape. They're more than that.
Yeah, they're people. I'm trying to think of a particular principle, but she's talking about, so she talks about how Jesus models, how to treat kids and how not to hinder them, and basically to get out of their way. So I don't think that's a very good summary, but anyway, I liked that part of her principles. It turns traditional teaching on its head. Everything she all of her methods do, and she says that the teacher is really supposed to kind of step out of the way and not be the showman of the universe and put on a show for them, entertain them. Basically, we're to kind of connect them with the information or the people of the past who are experts in all kinds of different areas, and then get out of the way so they can learn from them. So I liked that. I thought that was treating them like they were intelligent human beings and, capable, worthy people who can choose their own likes, interests, things like that.
Taylor, I'd love to shift over to you for a moment and hear your story, attachment parenting to discovering Charlotte Mason. Tell us a little bit about that.
Similar to Ashley, my mom had several of the ideas or principles, the big ideas, and those weren't always executed because I think it was difficult at the time that each of us were growing up, because there wasn't as much support or knowledge, information available about doing things differently. But she had the Charlotte Mason books. She had attachment parenting books, and that was something that goals perhaps that they had. My mom did homeschool my siblings and I was homeschooled all the way through. I knew that I wanted to do that for my kids. I didn't know how I wanted to do it because my mom would always say that we were eclectic. We didn't stick to one philosophy. So I didn't really have a lot of direction. But in college, I read again about the Charlotte Mason method along with all the other methods that are available, Montessori and classical. And traditional. And then when I went to teach in a classroom, I sort of got restructured a little bit in my brain, because you get into teacher brain. But then when I came home to stay home with my children, I realized that I didn't have to do things the way that I had been doing them in the classroom. And so we kind of floated around for a while trying to figure out parenting methods and homeschooling methods at the same time, which is a lot to do. But eventually I realized that attachment theory was important to our well-being. My oldest child really responded well to attachment theory, and subsequently my others have as well. And so that was something I knew we were going to continue doing. I knew we would continue homeschooling for a while because that also worked really well for our family's lifestyle. And then we moved to Arkansas in 2016. And about a year later, I met Ashley's friend who had been doing the book club with her, and she invited us to come to one of your gatherings. And we came, I guess it was late 2017, maybe early 2018. And we started, it was when they were doing several different Charlotte Mason subjects. So it wasn't actually the book club, it was a few other small things that they had kind of decided to do together, small group classes. And it didn't take very long for us to feel like this is what we needed to do. My kids were thriving in that group, even though for them, they were a little bit, we didn't know many people. We had just moved to this new town, and so they were a little bit hesitant. But this group was warm. They were welcoming. They were open, and we didn't feel excluded from anything. We felt like we were welcome. I clicked with the moms especially, and then the kids started to click with the other kids once they realized, oh, these are some things that we could enjoy. They loved playing outside. They spent so much time outside. The books that everyone was reading were wonderful. We loved the songs. We even eventually got into the dancing. It took us a little longer to get into dancing, but now we love it. And it was sort of like, I felt like I was being led by the Lord to go this direction with my homeschool, because I felt like we were sort of just floating around and not really sure where to go at that point with what direction we wanted to go. And so it just felt like it was the perfect timing, the perfect thing to do. And just to be honest, I think it saved our home life and our homeschool by joining this group and becoming a part of and following the Charlotte Mason philosophy.
Oh, I love that. Ashley, I wonder if we could talk a little bit about moving from kind of your standard homeschool co-op model to becoming a true education entrepreneur. And by that, I mean taking on the risk of ownership, right? As an entrepreneur, entrepreneurs take on both personal and financial risk. That's what separates entrepreneurs from the rest of us. And I think that there are probably listeners and viewers who might be in a co-op at the moment or running a homeschool co-op who are curious about what it takes to move from that model to running a small business, essentially, which is what you did with Cross Creek Academy. I wonder if you could share a little bit about that.
Sure. To go off of what Taylor just said, I kind of felt the same way about, like, it feels so good to settle down with a direction and a theory that you could get behind. I had tried everything and I wanted the other things to work, unschooling, classical. Not that there's anything wrong with those things, because there's not, but I wasn't at peace with it. It wasn't jiving for me, and it had to work for me in order for me to be able to endure the work that homeschooling is. And so I kind of felt that way about Charlotte Mason once I finally decided to go for it. I felt so much better just letting the rest fall to the background, of my mind. And also I feel like it saved our homeschool and our family life too, because I was so all over the place, and I kind of decided it was do or die, and we were going to just go for it, or we were going to quit homeschooling. I actually had already put my kids into a private school at that point, right before I started. So, right before I, went all in. So, as far as the ownership, we had met in my yard, in my living room, in my grandmother's carport, in our shop building, in a rental house, in a church. We had kind of done all of that. And my husband and I, through a series of events that kind of just fell into our lap, decided to buy a building for it. It was a very good buyer's market at the time, which right now is not so much the case. It seemed like everybody was buying houses at the time, but there was a small church that came up for sale, and I thought, anyway, I ended up there with a real estate agent. I thought I was going somewhere else. It was a bunch of confusion. And then I saw my husband driving by, and I was like, hey, I'm right over here. And he ended up looking at it. And, until I had put my kids into school that year, or the year before, he wasn't really fully on board with homeschooling, because that's just not how he was raised. His parents were both public school teachers and school board members his whole life, still are school board members, and all of that. Like, he believed in the system, and I was successful at public school too, but he couldn't quite get on board until afterwards, and some things happened that caused him to decide that he was going to get behind it. So that being said, he decided that he was going to support me, and so we bought this property, a small church, about 4,000 square feet, with 2 acres, and it was close to our house, thankfully. And so I know that's not something that everybody does, but I think if we hadn't done that, we might have like gotten a lake house or like some kind of vacation property. We were kind of like deciding what to do with our lives kind of at that time. And I had talked to someone who gave me some really good advice, and she said, if it doesn't work out, you can just sell it. And I was like, oh, well, I never thought of it that way before. And I think that's what ultimately gave me, the guts to do it, to put the money down. And yeah.
Yeah. And I remember you telling the story to me, that this person who gave you that great advice of like, this doesn't have to be forever. You could always sell it if it doesn't work out. Also suggested that you give yourself sort of a deadline, right? Or an end point. I wonder if you could talk a little about that, because I think that might also help prospective entrepreneurs who are on the precipice, wondering if they should take their own entrepreneurial leaps to maybe go for it. What was that advice?
Yeah, she said, so one thing, when I told her, there's this building, I just, am I nuts to think of buying this for just a homeschool co-op? She's like, absolutely not, because you can just sell it if it doesn't work out. And so, that just kind of blew my mind for some reason. I had never thought of that. And I also thought, well, I could do something else with it and keep it for my kids or whatever. It's an investment. And the other thing she said was, keep in mind how long you're willing to try this for. And so she said, for me, she was a podcaster. She said, for me, I decided that I would put out a podcast every week for 1 year. And even if only my mom listened to it, I would still do it for the full year. And then at the end of the 52 weeks, if I was not successful, I would give up this project and call it, I tried it, it didn't work out. That's off my bucket list, and I don't have to regret not doing that anymore. And that really spoke to me a lot. I really loved the idea of trying something I really wanted to do, but also giving myself an out. If I didn't like it, or if nobody else liked it and, you know, it didn't work out, I couldn't get anybody to do it or something like that. And so that's what I did. I chose 2 years, and I put aside my other, anything else I kind of had, jars I had my hand in, irons in the fire. I kind of put those on. I stopped doing everything else that I was half doing and went all in with this project for 2 years. And when the 2 years was up, it was clear we were going to keep doing it. Now, I wouldn't do it without Taylor.
So I just think that's so great. Yeah. But I think that's great. And it does provide a little bit of a release valve of saying, I really want to see this. I'd regret not trying. But I also don't want to feel locked into this for the rest of my life. And I think you also said, Ashley, when we spoke, that you were upfront with the people in your co-op, other members of your community, saying, look, I'm going to try this. I'm going to take this leap. I'm going to give myself 2 years and then we'll reassess. So that must have also been a way of providing that confidence to go forward.
Yes, I had Taylor with me and a few other moms, and I told them, now look, you know, this may not work. I want you to hop in with me, but I want you to know that you're not locked in. I'm not locked in. You're not locked in. We're all trying this. And at the end of 2 years, I may or may not still be doing it. And y'all are welcome to come and go anytime you please. And I made sure they knew that just because they were trying something really weird with me, really out there, that they weren't going to have to continue against their will at any point. I had to make, for my peace of mind, I had to make sure that everyone felt free to leave at any point.
Yeah. And in some ways that was the benefit as also of ownership, is that you were the founder. Your name was on the lease. You were the one running the building, running the business and owning the building. And were eager to have a team of collaborators around you, but that they were not responsible, that you were the one who was going to take that risk, and that they were free to come along or to leave, but you'd love for them to help shape that program. So yeah. Taylor, I wonder if you could talk a little bit about what those startup days were like and what you were thinking and imagining Cross Creek Academy to be at its origin in the new building.
Yes, I think it all goes back to, it goes back to Ashley's children, but to each homeschool mom, it goes back to our children. What I think was happening, and this is not the case for everybody, so this is why maybe our story is more unique in this way, is that we loved what we were doing so much that we wanted to do more of it, and we wanted to make it more a part of our homeschool. And if you do a traditional homeschool co-op, you come for maybe once a week, twice a month, or even once a month at the most, and you just do things that might be extra that you wouldn't have to do at home by yourselves. It's more fun to do together, but you don't have to do those things to complete your homeschool. But what ended up happening is we realized that the things we wanted to do were things that were essential to our homeschool, and we enjoyed doing them together. It's not everything that you would want to do every time because every term is different. But what Ashley was feeling was that what worked for her children was doing it in community like this, with this style leading us. And we realized we needed the space, and we needed the teachers, and we needed the time to be able to do that. And so I think that really is where it changed from being just a maybe extracurricular based fun homeschool co-op that you might meet together occasionally, to this could become a school. It could become a hybrid option. So that evolution was a little scary for me, because I was a little bit worried about losing home time that was important to me and to my kids. But we have worked together and tried to make things work to where Ashley was, the things she was looking for her kids were happening. And I felt as though I didn't have to be locked in for 8 hours, 5 days a week, as we've never done that. So we never have lost our homeschool completely, but we've also been able to really enrich it by doing things in a group, by maybe kind of mining from the skill sets that are available from the other moms, that there will be things I can never teach that I'm very thankful that my kids get to learn how to do. And so I think that was where the turning point was, and what Ashley realized, because of the type of brain she has. She's a dreamer and a planner, and she loves to look forward and see what could happen in the future. She realized we had so many wonderful resources in all the moms that were participating, and that we could make this more than just a casual, unstructured thing. It's become much more like a hybrid school. And so, although that's been a little bit difficult at times, it's been
But everything is still a la carte.
It's all still very flexible, which is something that we really like. And I think a lot of people who attend really appreciate that as well. But that was, I think, what prompted you to say this might need to be a 501(c) instead of just let's all get together, because Ashley was taking on so much of the ownership and the leadership and the responsibility too.
And Taylor's an introvert and I'm an extrovert. And so, some of my ideas really freak her out about, time we should spend up there and how much we should do. And I'm more of a let's get out of the house every day kind of family. And she's more of a let's not, like
let's pick and choose.
And I love our home time too. And I wanted everyone to be able to protect as much home time as they wanted.
Yes.
And that's why I think our program is really different than most hybrids, being that it's every single class is a la carte. No one's taking anything that they don't want to take.
Yes.
Or that they don't need, that they can adequately do at home. Everyone's just kind of picking and choosing what they would like to not teach at home. And I think that keeps people pretty happy.
Yeah, and also allows for more access. Some of your classes are very low cost, which makes it much more attainable for homeschooling families who might be on a single income. And the families can choose as much or as little of the programming as they want, right? Like you could have a student come 5 days a week if they wanted to, and take programming every day. But it sounds like more often than not, it's a couple of days a week or classes here and there. I wonder if you could share a little bit about what you find families looking for.
Yeah. Well, when I started doing more, days per week or whatever, I knew that it needed to be a la carte versus block, because coordinating homeschoolers is kind of like herding cats. It's everyone has different ideas about what it should be like, and everyone has a unique perspective, and just inherently homeschoolers are very opinionated and very selective about everything that they do. And most homeschoolers are very frugal as well because of inherently being on one income. And so I did not want people to, have to pay for anything that they didn't feel was, worth their time or money or whatever. So I'm losing track of the question.
Yes, how we came to structure things and what our week looks like.
Oh, right. Yeah. So I knew that homeschoolers really liked the a la carte stuff, even though it's easier I feel like it would be easier for us to do take it all or leave it all. We've kind of stuck with that because we know people really like it. We also do it kind of like a free market type of thing. So each teacher gets to choose if they charge money for their class or if they're volunteering, and if they charge how much. And the market just decides if their class, we take a minimum and a maximum student count. And if they don't make their minimum, then the class just doesn't happen. And if there's that many people willing to pay that much for it, then it happens. And so it's kind of like a little economy, and people kind of like that. They feel like they are free to choose to do something they feel is worth it, or don't do something they feel is not worth it. So,
and it seems as though we have people who are looking for much more structure and more academics. They would like to check off boxes that need to happen, maybe in order for their child to graduate, or just in order for their child to have a whole covered education. And then I think we have the other group who maybe they just want ballet.
Friends.
Yeah, friends. They just want
Yeah.
fun things, or they want extracurriculars like ballet or violin or piano or choir. And so they're looking for those kinds of things. And then we also have the group that is looking for Charlotte Mason specific subjects that
Plutarch, Shakespeare,
things you
things
can't
like that.
find at a typical co-op. So I think we have probably those
All
three
kinds.
categories. Maybe you could split those into micro categories, but at least those three for sure.
And you know, I love to make sure that people on very, very low budgets can still participate.
Yes.
So, you know, we have free classes, we have $2.50 everything. That's how much we charge for just materials for a class for the term. So it's very affordable for anyone. And so people are able to come and be a part of it and be, you know, in the group and make friends and, you know, have the socialization and, you know, things like that without having to pay huge amounts of money for things that they don't necessarily need or want. And so that's very important to me.
Yeah.
Also very important to me is if we do have a teacher teaching a very, you know, specialized subject, like we have one next year teaching Algebra 2 and physics and calculus, I want to make sure she gets paid for her time because she's spending a ton of time teaching it and grading tests and preparing for her lectures and things like that. And we make those as Charlotte Mason as we can, but the older, the high school level classes are more geared toward kids wanting to get into college and do well there.
So does this financial model work for you, Ashley, as an entrepreneur? Is this financially sustainable? And is there a pathway to that, right? Because, you know, you can love to do this and it can fill you with a lot of joy and meaning, but again, you're running a small business that needs to be financially viable, presumably to continue. How does that calculus play into this?
Yeah, it doesn't pay me or Taylor very well at all, but it does cover itself. So I haven't had to float the thing. We do like a percentage of every class that we charge for goes to the program, and the rest goes to the teacher. Right now, I think it's 70-30. And it kind of just pays to keep the lights on and the toilet paper going, and you know, we're able to pay them what they ask, and so that's been sustainable. It would be really hard to make a lot of money doing this, I will say. That wasn't ever our goal.
No.
But I don't think if that was, I could really speak to how to do that, because
and I think if your children were not a part of the program, have children who are benefiting, this would be a very poor business model for her, because she doesn't get paid a salary's worth, a year's worth of a salary. This wouldn't be sustainable if Ashley was looking for this to be your main source of income, but you're not really looking for that. Her children and my children those are the main dividends.
We're doing it for our kids.
Yes.
Yeah, and you would otherwise, like you said, your kids, Ashley, were in a private school before you launched this, so you're not paying tuition somewhere else and actually crafting something here where they're able to attend tuition free because you're providing your labor and your vision for that. So that also has to feed into the calculation of financial sustainability.
I mean, you can always compare it to what else you could be doing.
Right.
Definitely cheaper than sending all 5 of my kids to private school.
Right.
It's not as cheap as sending them to public school, you know, so it's but I don't feel like it's been a burden on me. I mean, other than, you know, we're paying for the building, but it's a personal, you know, asset. It's not, you know, the 501c3 doesn't own the building. It's just my family.
Right.
You know, so, you know, I don't feel like they're having to cover that, and that kind of is what makes it sustainable, honestly.
Yeah, and to make it more sustainable, if Ashley were looking to create a viable salary for herself, I think that some of the things we've talked about are looking for some sort of accreditation, which we don't have an official accreditation. So that's something that could have been added on, and then we would have increased our fees if we had pursued that. So, you know, a lot of schools have just a yearly fee that is not tuition or isn't books. There are even in co-ops I've seen building fees and family participation fees. So there are those things that get covered. We just have a registration fee and then per class fee because of our a la carte nature. But if we were looking to make this in the future, maybe something that was more able to pay Ashley a larger amount than just her children benefiting from it. I think that those are some of the options we've discussed, and we would probably just lean more toward the full-time, traditional school hours, I guess, if we were going to look for at least for the entrepreneur side of it.
Yeah, it seems like there's a tipping point for a number of students and then amount you're charging. But it's so important to me to keep it affordable that for me personally, that's not really, as long as my kids are benefiting and how they're getting their schooling, then I'm not really concerned about that. I think if I were doing this after my kids grew up, I would think of it more that way. But right now, it's more of a collaborative, cooperative thing between moms. We have it as an official business because it is such a kind of a large operation. You know, we want to have everything structured in a way that everyone feels safe and there's a chain of command, and we are governed by a board, and people can always go above my head if, you know, people are thinking it's feeling like a dictatorship or something like that. You know, I don't know. You know, I want everyone to feel like it's being done professionally. And so that is really all we're kind of doing what we're trying to do right now. But if we were trying to make a whole bunch of money, that would not be us. But we're serving the homeschool community as a whole, not just the wealthy ones. So we're really proud of that.
Yeah. And I wonder, you know, I don't want to take up too much more of your time. We'll wrap up in a bit, but I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that community, because I think one of the things that makes Cross Creek Academy stand out is that it's a very eclectic group of families, that you try to be very inclusive. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that.
What do you think, Taylor? I mean, COVID was really interesting because, you know, you've got people from, you know, wearing masks all the time or pro-vaccination all the way to, you know, no one should ever wear a mask for any reason because of, you know, these reasons, and the vaccinations are not good, and everywhere in between. And I feel like our group is, you know, runs the full gamut of every issue of every single area from religious to parenting style to every kind of opinion on this under the sun. So I think the coolest thing has been learning that and not to mention socioeconomic and everything. I think the coolest thing has been learning that you can really get along well with people who are different than you. And, you know, I think a person can be surprised at who they can become really good friends with, that on paper they would not want to be friends with for whatever reason. One of the ways we've handled that is in our handbook, we have made certain things kind of off limits in terms of things that we don't necessarily outlaw talking about, but we agree to disagree on from the beginning. We're not here because we agree on politics. We're not here because we agree on religion. We're not here because we agree on medical, non-medical, everything, or food preferences, or, you know, what's another example?
Just
that
parenting.
Sort of thing. Yeah, spanking, not spanking. But we are all here in agreement of we're doing Charlotte Mason. And it's so cool how she draws everyone, because her philosophy and methods are universally good.
Mm-hmm.
They're just very solid,
Mm-hmm.
to the point that people who are so different can come together and totally be happy and agree on everything that's being done, even if they are polar opposites. But we basically have really tried to, let everybody know from the beginning that I've even told people I don't even like the word like-minded. Like, we're not like-minded. We're all of our minds are different, and that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. And we're not here because we're like-minded. We're here because we like Charlotte Mason, and we can agree to disagree on some things, and that's fine, and we can still be friends.
Yeah, I just love it. And I know, so Charlotte Mason was a Christian British educator, and has a lot of sort of Christian themes in her philosophy. But you told me that your program is for everyone, that it's more of a secular program. Is that right?
Right. Yeah.
We've chosen to, we've steered away from teaching any Bible-based classes. The closest we get is we do sing hymns, but we don't discuss the theology in the hymns or anything like that. But the reason for that is because we want to be accessible to the whole gamut of where anyone is in their faith journey or their spiritual journey. And we do kind of have that dynamic, even though in this area, most people are profess some sort of Christianity, but we have not made that a centerpiece of our classes, but it is a big part of the philosophy. So we allow people to just kind of access that on their own. They can deal with it how they need to deal with it. And if they don't want to subscribe to that part of the philosophy, they don't have to. It's kind of something that we let them do.
Yeah, absolutely. Who wants to tell people what to believe or what to think? Certainly not us. And it's, how can you be if you were a Christian director and you wanted to outreach and show Jesus to people, how would you do that if you were a Christian school? I mean, just inherently, you can't do that if you're only letting Christians in. So, but I mean, I'm not trying to be a sneaky, evangelist or anything like that, but I'm just pointing out, it's great having people in all walks of life and all walks of spiritual journeys around, and everybody can learn from everybody else. If nothing else, you can learn that you can love people and get along with people and work with people who are different than you. And that's good. And so we're very happy with the way we've chosen to do that, even though Charlotte Mason was a Christian, and Taylor and I, identify as Christians.
It's just amazing. Such an incredible space. I'm so glad I got to see it in action and meet you in person and have you on the show to share more with others about this just magical micro school that you've built. I wonder if you could share how my listeners and viewers can learn more about Cross Creek Academy, connect with you, follow your journey.
Sure. We have the main thing we have to show is an Instagram page. So it will be, Instagram.com/Cross Creek Cottage Inc. And then the website, what's that, Taylor?
Cross Creek Cottage Inc. at Weebly, or it's the Weebly address.
I'll put links in the show notes for both of these.
Yes.
But that's about it. We don't have a whole lot. We don't have anything on Facebook. We try not to do a whole lot of online stuff, but also know that people want to see from the outside before they just this generation of people wants to see a little bit from the outside before they try anything. And so that has helped a little bit, but it certainly doesn't show everything, because there's just so much with the Charlotte Mason education. I mean, there's just so much going on at all times.
Yeah, just incredible. Well, amazing that what you've built and what you're continuing to build. And I'm so impressed and can't wait to follow your journey. And Ashley France and Taylor Guy, thank you so much for being on the LiberatED podcast.
Thank you so much.
Kerry. Appreciate you having us on.